Hey guys, I got the winners of the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series, Team Wendell, on tonight to talk about the 5 lures that absolutely slayed it for them this year. Let's hop in. I asked you to come with 5 tonight. Let's start with number 5. And okay. What do you got for us?
So number 5 for me is kind of a, it's not one I take with me all the time. It's more of a specialty bait, but it's one of my favorite baits. It's one that many of you may know of or have heard of before, but they don't make anymore. So it's quite interesting, but it's a bait for spawn fishing. And in Florida here, we have a beautiful spawn, which is absolute giants, man. Just absolute giants here. Come like January, February, it'll last into March in some of the areas. It's fantastic. But I feel like my ability to catch a bass that's on a bed is 90% plus. Like if it is in the bed, as long as it's not running, like completely leaving, as long as it stays in the general 8 to 10 feet, I feel like I'll be able to catch that bass if I have enough time. And the method I use, the bait I use here, I'll show the bait. It's called the Havoc Backslide.
Okay.
It's by Berkeley. They don't make it anymore. It's essentially like a little centipede bait. Now Zoom makes some other ones, but this is Mike Iaconelli's design. And what's special about this one, I'll pull one out for you guys, is that the back end of it has a denser plastic. So you can use a weight in a regular centipede bait, but the back end, which is this end right here, you probably can't tell. It's more dense.
Okay.
One side is completely flat. I don't know if you can see. It's hard to tell. It's rounded on the top, but one side is completely flat. So you're going to fish this on a little bit of lighter line, probably. So Florida, if I'm sitting on like a 7-pounder, I can't go too light, right? So I'm typically, the lightest I go is, especially with vegetation, like probably 12-pound fluorocarbon. But and this is like my secret thing that this is money, absolute money. I typically use like a Senko kind of circle hook.
Yep.
Very simple. Or I'll Texas rig it, which I like to do as well with a smaller size Texas rig hook. But you put the flat side on the bottom. And the point is, when you cast this out, because of the denser back end on this, it'll glide away from you. So typically when you cast out a bait, you have to pull it towards a fish, right? Always pull it towards. If I have a bass sitting in front of me, facing me, which they like to do, I can cast in front of it, which is between me and the bass, and I can drift this bait straight into its face. And
all it has to do is just open
such a tiny bait, like you can see on my hand. It's very lightweight. It might take a minute for it to drift in, and it'll just flutter these little legs. And because it's so lightweight, it might take a few casts, especially if there's wind. But if you're able to get this and hit the bass on the face, it might not do it the first time, but eventually, even if you hit them in the back, it doesn't matter. Because it falls so slowly, they'll just swing around, grab it. They will grab it, I will say, over 90% of the time.
Oh, wow.
It is a money bait. Most people will fish. I don't have any here with me, but they'll like Texas rig something, find a spot in the bed, which I do that too sometimes. They'll find a spot in the bed that the bass will try to protect. They'll come over, grab it, a spot they don't want the bait to be. This is a completely different approach where, and I grew up trout fishing in the Northeast, where you have to drift the bait kind of near the trout a lot of times if you're fly fishing, things like that. But this, you drift it right into its face. Now, if it's not facing you, you can drop it right on its back, because it's falling like 1 foot per like 30 seconds. 20 seconds. It's so slow.
Super slow.
But because it's so lightweight, they just feel something touch. They turn around and it's still there. It hasn't fallen below them.
Right.
Grab it. So it's called the Havoc Backslide. They don't make them anymore, so you can't just go to the stores and buy them.
But so how do you source these things?
So I bought a ton back when they were available. But they have the way you do it is if you just get a regular centipede bait, grab one.
Because they make Zoom peeds, or is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I have one of those, but they don't fall like that.
No, so I haven't used these too much because I still have backslides available to me. But you would probably want to tail weight these, and if you get like a nail weight, just cut a tiny little bit off of it, kind of tail weight it so it kind of drifts away from you. But any type of really light bait, even if it doesn't drift away from you, any type of really light bait on lighter line and a slow flutter fall, money in the spawn. It's absolute money. So that's my number 5. It's the specialty.
Wow, I like it. That is specialty, and that's interesting. Name that lure one more time.
It's called the Havoc Backslide.
All right, good luck finding one of those, folks. You're going to have to go to the dark corners of the internet and eBay to find someone who's trying to get rid of that. But if you find them, I know who you can sell them to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm hoping.
Yeah. How many you got left? How many you got left?
I have one more bag. There's like 10 in here, and I stacked my other bag. There's like 30 in the other bag. So we got about 40 left.
You got about a season left in you, my friend.
Yeah. You gotta first I start with the Senko. If it doesn't work with the Senko, if it's like a real difficult bass, I'm like, all right, break out the backslide.
Oh no, here we go. Backslide.
Yep.
One of you're cutting them down, 39,
That's
38.
right. It better be a good fish too. We're not going to use it on a little one. Yep.
I only break out the backslides for 7 plus.
That's right.
Hook them in the eye. I love it. All right, so that's number 5. Jack, what's your number 5?
You said from least to.
Yeah, the one that's kind of like your specialty type of bait. You carry it with you often, or maybe you bring it out in a particular season because it slays.
Missile D-bomb, punch rig.
All right, share with us your setup. I'm literally looking at a bag of missile D-bombs that are soaking right now in bait fuel, nonetheless. All right, keep going.
So
how do you have that set up?
I use a super bug, and I just use a regular flipping hook.
Okay.
Put a 1 ounce weight because, like I said, from June to September, I punch because that's where the fish are, or they were. They just started moving back into there because of them spraying grass down here. But yeah, I just rig it up 1 ounce and then flip it right into the edge of the grass. Or if you have lilies, flip it into a hole in the lily and just let it hit the bottom and let it set there. Don't do anything with it.
Don't do nothing.
Nope.
Just kill it.
That's the hardest thing. I mean, I found that out when I caught the 21 inch. I had flipped it into the hole and then laid my rod down because I had to get something, and it must have sat there for like 20 seconds. And I picked up my rod and the bait took off.
Oh.
So it had been sitting there looking at this.
Just staring at it, and eventually decided.
Three of the 20 inches that I caught was the same process. So
just letting it sit there, no action. Just let it fall, let it sit.
And let it sit. Yep.
You don't do anything. You just let it sit.
I just let it sit. Yeah, let the line go slack.
It's painful. I can't.
Wow.
I can't, man. I just can't.
That's not for me.
I'm in pain just listening to it. I'm ADD. I can't sit still. I'm struggling to sit still right now.
I gotta work it. I gotta push the line.
Yeah.
Well, this is when you're looking. When I need that 20 plus. That's what I have to make myself do that. So.
Oh my God.
Hats off to you for that.
You know what? I'm gonna try it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not right now in September. It's actually in my September lures, is a punching rig, which is the same rig, right? 1 ounce. I throw it in the lilies, but I have it. I catch bass on it, but man, 20 seconds. I'm gonna need to have like a coffee with me, so I'll throw it out, then I'll go get a drink of coffee, and then I'll come back to it, and then I'll pull out.
That's what I was doing. I was getting a drink out of my black.
There you go.
In the ice pack.
There you go. I like it. All right, we're gonna move on. Phil, number 5. Phil, I know you're out. You had to pop off for a second. Now you're back. But
yeah, I don't know what happened. Yeah. All right. So I guess if you call this a top 5 or one of my least lures I use, you guys are talking about punching and jigging and stuff. And it's whatever I have the patience for, I guess if they're biting, it's going to make me patient, but I like my swim jigs, so I get a little creative with my stuff. Like I said, most of all my fish this year was caught topwater. And so, but I do things creative, you guys may laugh at me or whatever, but you see these little cheap little frogs, right? These little cheap frogs that you can put on the little spinner baits, the little cheap.
Those are Strike King, something.
Strike King toads. Yeah.
This is a water Walmart this morning, and there's 9 of them there for $1. Buzz toads. That's what they are.
And they are some of the cheapest, safest, effective lures that you can use. When I say safest, you're not going to lose a lot of money. So you're safe. All right. So I do things creative. I hear a lot of stories my whole life. And if people go by, oh, you fish this worm and you throw it here, and it's okay. How many fishermen have come before you and fished that same spot? And some of these fishers, they'll hang out there for a while and they see that. So I like to throw something that's going to be a little bit different, got a little bit of behavior to it. So I'll use a swim jig and I'll get creative and throw things on that. So this right here was one of my successful little creations that I did. And not many people would do something like that. Yeah, it don't have much on it. It's straight, but it's got that little glide. Let it set. It sets just like that. And just a little bump, and sometimes I'll just swim it, and it works perfect. But that's just some of my leasts I do. Like I told you, I'm more action bait. I like my spinner baits, my chatterbaits. I like my top waters. I like, the swim baits. But that's one of my in the 5, if that's what you're looking for.
So a buzz toad on a swim jig is what you just
It's
shared.
insane. It's insane.
Hey, you know what?
It's something different. It's different. I do things different. You just never know. I don't like throwing something that you come along and threw, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I want to say everybody's different. So I try to get creative to throw that one thing different. And if it's the same lure, I try to get creative with that lure to work it a little bit different. I don't have your patience, Jack. 20 seconds up there.
Only during my punch. Otherwise, you'll just see me jerking it.
I understand. Hopefully, I might get to witness you do that and say, "Dang, okay."
Bill, you had me at swim jig, my friend. You could have said I throw baked potatoes in the back of swim jig. And I'd be like, heck yeah, man, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah. But I'm a fan of the swim jig. I really think it is. It's just you can work it that way. Like I said, the lakes that I fish up in this area, pretty deep, clear lakes. And so, we don't have a lot of, unless you're fishing some parts of, like you fish Lake Lanier, but a lot of the lakes that we fish up here don't have that grass unless you go to like some of the reservoirs that have that old nasty tube grass that you have to punch through, and I know that's good for the environment, for the lake, but I hate tube grass. Just the thought of it. So I'm just trying to get down through it. But.
Ralph 1N says, Wendell fishing, only time I have a lure sitting for 20 seconds when I'm picking out a backlash. Amen to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you end up having a fish on it too when you go to reel in. So
yeah, it's true.
That has happened.
That's true. I love it. All right, my number 5. So I'm usually bringing this thing out at 2 times. It's when it's super cold in the spring and when it gets cold in the fall. So this will make my How to Outfish Your Friends with these top 4 bass lures October edition. But this is a lure that absolutely slayed for me early on this season. It's going to be the 10-inch mag draft. I have 6-inch mag drafts. These also do well, but the 8-inch are the ones that pick up the donkeys where I'm at. And I'll throw this on 20-pound fluorocarbon on a 7.9. I think it's actually an impulse ledge rod. The only thing that really manhandles something this big. And this slow roll, right? Because if you pull this thing too fast, it'll blow out. And so to get that nice tail flutter, it just slow. And then trust me, you will know when something big enough. A lot of times you'll get little ones nipping at the tail. And you're like, no. I want the 4+ pounder up here in Ohio, and that's a pretty good fish up here. So we have those, and then I've been goofing around with the Berkeley Call Shad as well. Haven't had as much luck on that as I did the mag draft. However, I do like the lure keeper on the Call Shad better. You guys see this, or you can at least hear it. It has a little click in, and that does not come out until you get a bass on it. So that's why I like the Call Shad, because on the mag draft, the magnets suck. Right, it's called a mag draft because the hook's supposed to be hooked into a magnet. However, it never works, and every time you pull it in, you basically have to pull that thing out, and you basically shove the hook up into the body. But that only works when it's new. After that comes out 4 or 5 times, it always wants to come out. So nonetheless, still like it. Still think it's incredibly effective bait for the spring. I'll be pulling that out in October when the temperatures hit the 50s, low 60s here in Ohio. So that's my number 5. Seth, passing it off to you. For your number 4.
So the next 4 that I have are more situational based. The number 1 is my favorite by far, but in Florida, there's so many different types of vegetation, open water, like there's different things you do. So I went with number 4 as a flipping bait. And I used to throw a lot of missile baits, and I still do, like the Baby Destroyer, if I'm just like flipping pads or just flipping docks, whatever, like Texas rig. But this past year I tried out, and I don't follow these folks or whatever, so however you feel about the company, it is what it is. But the Guggen baits, the Bandito bug.
Okay.
And for some reason, the action of the arms on this one and the crawls are just, I feel like they've been producing a lot better for me than my missile baits, Baby Destroyer or Destroyers, which are similar type bait. It's not a crawl, it's more like a creature bait. But these little legs on here, you pull these apart, obviously, and it has a beautiful flutter on the fall. So that's what I've been using as my flipping bait, as my number 4. Not a whole lot about it, but
Question for you. Well, what rod, reel, all that setup do you use for that line?
So, man, I don't even know. I use 20-pound fluorocarbon on a Halo, I think 7.3 is it?
Okay.
7.3. I don't even know what reel is on there. I have a few different reels that I run through. So it's just a regular,
Probably
it's
something
not
faster.
not a fast action reel or anything like that. Probably 6'4" or something. But yeah, it's just a basic reel. I don't have it with me. It's out in my truck because I just got back from a tournament. But it's on a Halo rod, 20-pound fluorocarbon.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
FZKO1 says underspin is the most universal and slept on technique there is. Interesting. It's interesting because it just made my September lure video. And I agree. Owner underspin on the Rage Tail is highly effective, especially in clear water. I don't like using it in muddy water, which some of the lakes around here have. But if you got clear water, underspin, juicy. I agree with you. So here's a question for you on that. Put that bug back up. You had a bunch of legs on that. Do you ever modify these things by pulling some of the legs off just to get a little different razzle dazzle on it?
I don't. I just leave it as is, and the fish usually take a few off and make it custom.
There you go. They customize it for you.
But I saw Ryan has a comment there.
Yeah, Ryan said, notch the end claws to get a little more action, a little different on the fall.
Yeah,
interesting.
I just love it. The flutter of these, beautiful. Plus, I watched Scott Martin win the Bassmaster Open on these. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. He sold me, and it's been working well. I've really liked it. So.
Guilty.
Tom Mick says, "Hey, you can find all the Bandito bugs you want at Ollie's cheap. Nice. Good stuff, cheap." You have Ollies? You guys have Ollies down there where you guys are at?
Where I'm at, I don't know. I haven't seen any.
Okay,
I haven't seen any Ollies down here. I know we did up in the Northeast where I used to live back in the day. But, haven't seen any here.
Low Life Angler says, "Not a big fan of Guggen, but the Guggen frogs nail the bass." All right, I like it.
I got kicked off.
It's all right. I didn't kick you off. I don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what's happening. All right, that was your number 4. Let's go ahead and bring around the horn here. Phil, what do you got? What's your number 4?
So basically, he's the same Bandito bug. I watched it. Right. He won the tournament on that, and I'm like, man, I've seen these baits, or look, it's no, you just showed it. So I do understand the clipping of it a little bit. It will create the action on it. I know some people that have used those bugs, Seth, and they don't even separate them. They come, you have to separate them. They don't even separate them. So I've known people to do that. I've known people to put those on a drop shot, right on a drop shot with those things. They have those action. It's like I said, it's something different. It's different. It doesn't look like anything else you see. Some of that freaky looking lures, you see the rubber stuff now looking like dragons and things. A fish is not going to know that. You know what I'm talking about. You guys have seen those things, but it's something different, something with a little more like, hey, what's that? That's what I look for in it. I just like the reaction when they get mad and they realize it wasn't what they thought it was.
Yeah. I will say the one downfall of these Bandito bugs, I think, is the salt content super high, so you don't get a lot of fish out of them. They rip pretty easily, so you might get like 2 to 3 or something like that if you're lucky, and you got to go to another one.
A little bait pop on that is good too. A little bait pop on those are good too. The bait pop is good. I tried that technique too. It's pretty good. But I use mine on an open face. I think it's like I don't know if it's right at a 7 foot, a 6'9", 7 foot. I like that little, so I can just kind of feel that little slightness with it. I don't put a lot of weight with mine because I just want to feel that. But that's how I use mine. I use it around some deep structure. I'll drop it off down in there, so just something different. I try to make that thing looks like where I fish, if we have trees up in the water, the tops out of them, I try to make it look like that thing is crawling down that tree or trying to get down. That's what I kind of do with that Bandito bug.
Yeah, you're like one with the lure, my friend. I like it. You were like manifesting.
I don't know. Lure. You got to become the bait. You got to become the bait. I used to raise cichlids, and I'd have big fish tanks, and I would raise fish, and I would just sit and watch fish, and how they behave. Fish are pretty lazy, and so on most part, I'm lazy too. I love the fact of laying there. Hey, that's pretty good. Hey, so I think
you're
like
a bass
that.
Right now. You've just turned into a lure. You're turned into a bass. I love it.
See, so I don't know. That's just some of my techniques. That's what I do. I grew up watching all these different fishermen and how they do it, and I was like, you have to present that lure in a way to create that strike, unless they're just absolutely starving, and you throw into a bed of a ball of bait, and just there's your chance. Other than that, you got to get them to bite. So.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I'll trade off lures that break apart for bass all day long. I'll spend all my money there. All my money. I don't care. And so
I joke with my friends, I say I have a pretty bad addiction. If anywhere I go, I might have 2 or 3 of them. Let me grab one more. I'm probably going to need it. So I'm really bad about just trying to stock up on my favorite, what really works. I don't want to be out there knowing I don't have that lure, So just
I've been doing that going into this Knucklehead tournament. Oh my gosh, I got doubles and redundancies
yes.
of all this stuff I plan on throwing. All right, Jack, what do you got? Number 4.
Well, number 4, like I talked about earlier, it's the wacky.
Oh yeah, but you got Yumdinger wacky. So you went budget wacky.
Yeah. Well, I saw how well they worked last year. So.
Heck yeah. So you've been dialing up your skipping game, I imagine.
I've been working on my skipping under the docks, and yeah, it's I learned a lot last year, especially in that wind. That's why I have a new kayak this year.
Oh, you do? What are you running?
129, PWR 129 with the spot lock.
Spot lock? Yeah, you ain't messing around this year. You're not getting blown into the docks.
Well, you saw what happened last year.
You were having a tough time, and so it was. I think we had 4 hours to go. And like, okay, and maybe it was 3 hours. Nonetheless, it's like it was all on Jack, right? I don't think anybody else in the team was planning on upgrading their bass. And what were you sitting at? A 16?
No, I caught the first bass. It was 15-inch, and then I caught like 20 more 15-inchers, 14-inchers, and that's where I was fishing. So that's why I moved out with you, because you're just, everything was so big. And of course, those other people from the other team caught that 20-incher right out back by you, So I moved back out there, but I didn't go to the grass flats like I usually fish until right at the end, and that's when I caught that bass. So
yeah.
But I've been practicing lots and lots. I've lost quite a few hooks too.
I had to bring. That's the lesson I'm going to learn this time. I need to bring quite a bit more hooks than I usually do. That's all right. I do have quite a bit of them now. All right, that's your number 4. I love it. What do you fish that on? Like an 8-pound fluoro on spinning rig?
I'm using 20-pound braid with an 8-pound leader on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, it's a 10-pound braid. Sorry, 10-pound braid with an 8-pound leader. Yeah.
Right on. I like it. All right, folks. My number 4, and this is kind of, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to choose this one. It's just a square bill crank. However, I modified it and I put on these trapper hooks. Now, I know they're out of business, but right now, if you go over to Tackle Warehouse, they are so incredibly cheap, and these things are so incredibly sharp. I know because I put one through my thumb early on in the season. But this lure right here, I think Cray makes it, and it almost doesn't even have any color anymore. It's almost just solid clear. I've probably caught 70 bass on this lure. I can't believe I still have it, to be completely honest with you. And so this particular crankbait just does the trick, especially in cold water. And I would usually want to fish a crankbait in shallower water, but I was fishing this thing in like 20 feet and it was still pulling them up from the bottom. So I don't know what it is about this particular lure. I only have one of them, so it's now like precious to me. So I need to find some more, but I typically don't fish the square boat crankbait outside of like April and May. So this is kind of more seasonal. I put it away and go soft plastics throughout the summer. Semi-soft plastics. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this one, and I'm going to cheat because I'm going to throw this in here as well. But this is like a mini chatterbait, which has been black and blue. If I'm in dirty water, the mini chatters have been doing really well for me as well. And I like these because being that they're sized down, the gauge of the wire is smaller. And so you have a tendency to actually get them past the barb, so you don't lose them as much as you do typically on the larger ones because they're harder to pin. They hit when you're in motion. And so I think a lot of times why I lose them at the net because I don't have them pinned past the barb. So nonetheless, that was my 2-in-1. I cheated, I know, but I came with 6 and didn't know how to throw that in there. All right, now we're getting to the juice.
What was the name of the brand of the square bill?
It's Cray. It's actually a local company around here. It's called Cray, and I believe this is their Pearl Ghost or something like that. Nonetheless, they're not super expensive, and I trade out the hooks for the trapper hooks. And these trapper hooks, this is going to be your size 4. And I'll tell you a quick story. I had somebody else on the show not too long ago, a few months ago, and he's like, "Hey, I picked up these trapper hooks. They're really cheap on Tackle Warehouse." So I was over there and like, you know what? I got 2 kids. I'm going to be burning through some serious terminal tackle in the months and years to come. And so I go on this Tackle Warehouse, and I haven't bought anything in bulk on Tackle Warehouse, But once you add something to the cart, they have this thing where if you keep adding things to the cart, the price just keeps on going down and down and down to the point where I was getting like a pack of these for like $1.50 or something stupid. And then I was good to go check out, and I was like, oh, I'm at $40. That's a lot for hooks. They're like, oh, you get free shipping at $50. Like, all right, well, I'm not going to give away money here. So I went back, filled up my cart with $50 for the hooks. I had 800 hooks in my cart. I was like, all right, here we go. And I've had a lot of luck, especially with the trebles. These are really, really nice. I use a lot of my wacky worms are trapper hooks. I don't know how long they'll be around. I'm pretty sure they sold their entire stock to Tackle Warehouse because they're still on there and still available. I've heard people say, I'm not corroborating this, but on the larger hooks, because of how they're bent for the single hooks, that they'll break at the bend. I have not experienced that. And you know how fishing goes. One person says something, 1,000 people repeat it, and almost becomes gospel. But I've yet to actually hear that from anybody who's it actually has broken on. And so far, I love them. I love the size 1s and 2s for wackies. They do pin them really well down in that gap. And so that is my number 4. All right. Now we're getting to the juice. Top 3. And it should be exciting. So how about we do this? How about we do number 3 and number 2, and we'll do a round on number 1 to kind of finish us out.
Sounds good. So number 3 for me is the Z-Man Jackhammer, especially here in Florida. This is the Golden Shiner version. Either 3/8 or ½ ounce, just depends on the depth that you're trying to get to here on these. But with this one has the gold blade, Golden Shiner. The gold blade seems to be the ticket here in Florida. I don't know about the other states, but this has been money down here. And I pair it with a new trailer that I have, and it's like 14 things deep on one of those bag rows up there. So I'm not going to grab it right now. But it's the Berkeley Power Bait Power Stinger. Okay. It's like a little swim bait on the back. Berkeley makes it, and I've done pretty well with them. There's also some other trailers that I've used, but it seems to be more of the chatterbait or more of the jackhammer than the trailer, just based on my experience. But it is the Berkeley Power Bait Power Stinger trailer that I pair with this. Typically, I'm going to be throwing this in a little bit of dirtier water here in Florida, pulling it through vegetation, usually on 20-pound fluorocarbon for the most part. Caught a lot of giants this year on this. Won some events, placed top 3 in some events on this. This is what I lost the 2 in the Hobie Open. That got me 15th on this. So hopefully you guys can finish the deal if you hook them. But
now I know why you have 2 jobs. It's because you buy jackhammers. So now it's all
a whole row of them back there. You can
it's all coming together now.
I'm looking at your wall. I'm looking at your wall.
It's like a bottom corner. There's a lot more. This is like my office and like my fishing cove cave. I got some awards from this past year, all that good stuff. We got a light that's about to fall. And then number 2 for me, we've already talked about it, is the Senko style bait. Mine's actually Senko, Yamamoto Seno. I like the rate for which these ones fall. I've tried some other brands, but for some reason I think it has a little bit faster fall rate, which I like on these, especially for flipping around, trying to hit different targets. I throw a little O-ring in the middle of it. I hook it with I don't know what size the circle hook is. I have it in my my tackle box, but kind of like a circle hook right there on the band, and that's number 2.
Wow. All right. I like it. So note to self, I did this one. Note to everybody. Learn from my mistake. I bought a bag of those. They're not cheap. They run like 80 cents a worm by the time you get done breaking it down. And I was like, it was the night before, and I was like, what I hate doing is wasting time out in the water. So I'm gonna pre-rig these worms with the rubber rings. I was like, sweet. And of course, everyone's laughing at me because since I'm telling the story, you know how it ends. I wake up the next morning, half of them are just split in half. I'm like, no, are you kidding me? I'm like, all right, well, that's a lesson learned. Don't try that. I'm glad I didn't do it with like a bag of 100. I'm glad I learned a lesson on like 8 of them because, yeah. So lesson learned there. I like it. All right, that was your number
3 and 2.
And number 2. All right, Phil, what do you got for 3 and 2?
Well, mine's going to be pretty much the I throw it like I consider a chatterbait and a spinnerbait about in the same category because of the way they work. But mine's pretty much going to be the chatterbait, swim bait combination for my 3rd to throw those in there. I've been these 6 Cents brand. I don't know if you guys have those up there, but the 6 Cents brand's pretty nice. I love these big. They actually put these big leaves on there. I love the silver. Yeah, I love the big leaves on them, man. I just love that look, that appeal. I just grabbed one particular. This is not one I throw. This one's pretty heavy, but I just grabbed one to kind of give you the idea of that. And when I do my trailers, I'm into the 6 cent stuff right now. I've used the Rage swims. I got a bunch of those. I love those. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I like doing something a little different. They got these little, it's like translucent. I don't know if you can see it, but there's little specks of little coloration in there, like a little purplish blue offset in that translucent. And it's a little different the way I throw this with the chartreuse and a little white skirt. But my biggest thing with this entire bait is going to be the leaves. I love how they design these, and it's pretty sturdy. A lot of times when you're using spinner baits, a friend of mine was telling me yesterday that he found a new one that's actually thicker right here where you tie. It's actually a lot thicker because you notice when you hook a heavy bass, it'll destroy a spinner bait if you're not careful. It will destroy. So I was wanting to get some of those and try them out, but that's one of mine. I just throw the chatterbaits, Strike King things. Berkeley's got some they were trying to do. I don't know if anybody like them, but these little chatterbaits, there's another translucent on the white because up here where we are, I love some good stained water, so I'll keep these in my arsenal right here. So especially where I fish. In that area I was telling you guys earlier that I love to fish because it's just different variations in it. But those are going to be pretty much my third. But my second, I love swim baits. So I got a variation of them. I'm going to start with the old school where I started out with swim baits. When I started kayak fishing, I started fishing the Chattahoochee River, which comes out of the North Georgia mountains, and it runs into Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier has the Chestatee River and the Chattahoochee River. Those are your two main huge rivers that feed Lake Lanier. And so there's a lot of shoal bass on the river that I learned to fish for shoal bass. I had a 19-year-old kid teach me how to fish with a swim bait on the river with a shoal bass. And we have a local guy around here. I've never met him, but it seems like a really nice guy. But I'm not sponsored or supporting anything. I buy them. These are very expensive. I started out using the old Mike Bucca swim baits, and this is the old first generation. It's just a little shanks in between these sections. It's just something simple to look at, right? And that's like a paintbrush on the end of it. This was one of the first things I started out swimming. This is one of my old schools. I just kind of kept it around. I actually kind of keep it hanging up as a reminder because I caught some very nice fish on this. A lot of nice shoal bass on this type of swim bait because of the action. And I use a lot of the 6 cent stuff. Like I said, it's got some really good action to them. Yeah, that's the trace. And then I can't remember this, and I'm so sorry. I buy so many different lures, you guys, and I can't remember what I buy, but I think this is another 6 cents thing that a friend actually gave me this one to try. It actually has your hook in the bottom to keep the lure upright when it's swimming. And this is another similar one too, like you were talking about that the Mag Pro. You're so right on the money with that on that Mag Pro because I like to throw pretty fast reels. Like I said, I like my 7s and up, so you have to be really careful when you do pull that mag bait because it will roll and flip. And the same thing with this is this little heavy design on the bottom. It stays kind of hid. And so it keeps it upright. I don't know if you can see that, but it keeps it, pretty much upright. This has got some great action. It's wore out. I've caught some good fish on this too as well. But those are my pretty much 3 and 2, my spinners, chatters, and then my different swim baits, of course, glide baits. This is actually a new one I've found that I want to try. It looks
I like the glimmer on that. I can see it on the camera.
There's only one thing I'm noticing about it already with it. It's because they're actually stickers. And, if you're going to make a bait, I'm not even going to say who it is. I did say 6 cents, but anyway, I just would like to say, if you're going to do this bait, these stickers don't, I just worry about them stickers coming off. It's really nice. It's actually a glide. It's a flow glide. I think it's what it's called.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to trying this one out. I'm going, it's weekend and I'm going to really try that one, but I love swim baits. And so that's.
What size swim baits do you usually swim? 6?
Well,
8?
Believe it or not, 6, 6.5, but 8 is my favorite. I don't have it up there, but my old 8-inch Mike Bucca swim bait, my God. And I'll tell you a real quick story and I'll shut up. So
no, go for it.
I was fishing the Chattahoochee River and I was coming down through there and man, I'd already caught about 13 or 14 little spots and maybe 1 or 2 little shoal bass, nothing to brag about. Okay. And I really didn't think that there was any kind of fish in that river of any kind of size. I just my dumbness of not knowing, I guess. But this kid, I heard a racket behind me. I looked behind me, and it's the 3 or 4 kids coming down in some very expensive kayaks, big, long 8-foot rods, and huge swim baits hanging. I thought, man, these guys are saltwater fishing or something. And some parts of this river is only knee deep.
Right.
And so anyway, he comes up to me. We're sitting in a little eddy, and he goes, "Did you fish that section over there with a big boulder coming out?" I said, "I haven't been over there in my kayak, if that's what you're asking." He said, "Perfect." This kid, 19-year-old kid, pulls out this big rod, huge 8-inch swim bait. When it hits the water, it sounds like a brick.
Right.
I mean,
You assumed
bam,
everything just went.
it's
scooting.
over.
Yeah.
And I've always known, you throw a rock in the water, they're going to swim off. But when that thing hit the water, this kid pulled up a 19-inch shoal bass out of that hole. We've been sitting there. I've thrown all kinds of stuff up in there, and nothing. And this kid shows up, pulls that out. I'm sold on the swim baits. I just reached over, grabbed his kayak, pulled it next to mine, and said, "Hey, buddy, you can't go anywhere until you tell me what you got.
You got to tell me everything you
I'll
got."
let you fish that hole." So anyway, 19-year-old kid showed me, introduced me to that, and and I've been hooked on it ever since. So it's just one of my go-to second best. I love swim baits. So,
question for you: someone had the same question, which do you trim the skirt on your spinner? But my question to you is, being you like to give them something a little different. Do you do a lot of modifications on your lures?
I don't modify anything on my spinners, and the reason being is because a lot of them are cheaply made, and I'm just saying they're cheaply made, and the skirts are going to fall off and come off anyway. So I like to keep as much skirt on as I possibly can, because I work when I work. I'm not fishing. I don't want to sit around and try to doctor up some lures because I don't have time for that. So I don't cut any of mine skirt off, and the reason being is because I like that. I don't like to show all of the actual swim bait part of the trailer. I like to just that little flicker back there. That's all I'm looking for. I don't want any of that. I just, the skirt's on the water. You're going to see it anyway, but I still like the thought of that, just that little flicker back there. It's more this, but that little flicker, but that's why I don't trim mine.
All right. Jack, 3-2, what do you got for us?
Well, 3, I have the buzz bait, but also
Is that the buzz toad?
Yeah, the toad. Yeah.
Man, I could buy 10 of those right now for $10. So if anybody wants
skirt.
some, I'll go back to Walmart and get them for you.
And with along with that for 3, I use the chatterbait. These are the one casts that
You sent me some.
Oh yeah, so they're weedless.
Yeah.
Especially down here, it's a EWG hook, and it travels through the blade. Actually, doesn't get caught as often as you think it would. But yeah, I feel that. But my number 2 would be my Shaky head.
All right.
I've been playing real dangerous this year with it, throwing it in holes in the grass, 12-pound fluorocarbon.
Oh, wow. That is risky business.
As soon as they hit, you got to get them up out of there real quick. But yeah, that's my number 2, Shaky head. That's a 3/30 seconds is what I'm throwing.
Okay. It's a little slower fall there.
And just a zoom finesse worm.
Trick worm.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Is that your color, GP?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Me. That's it. That's the only color that should be made. So good. I love it. My 3-2 is going to be, and it was already kind of mentioned. However, if I am fishing just for fun, I'm throwing Yum Dingers. But if I'm fishing tournaments, I'm throwing the Yamamotos. And so green pumpkin, black fleck, I buy them by the hundreds. They cost me a small fortune. Don't tell my wife. But they are, and you're right. There's something, and people will say, not noticeable. It's noticeable, folks. I have thrown a wacky worm tens of thousands of times, and I've made my own. I've tried to recreate the formula for the Yamasenkos, and there is just something about that fall and that rate and that flutter that just gets those bass to bite more than any other type of 5-inch plastic worm that I have. And so if you haven't tried them yet, because you're like, oh crap, those things are expensive, they are worth it. I would try to figure out a way to make them last longer, because if you go straight through the worm, what happens is they hit it, and then right before you pull them up to the boat, they do that last shake on the line, and that's when they fly like 20 feet away from it every time. And so, especially if you're using a net, if you're lipping them, you can kind of bring them all over the boat, just keep them underwater, lift your worm up, and usually get a few more lives out of it. But that's my number 3. That's typically one of my go-tos. I usually fish the wacky worm, 8-pound fluorocarbon on an impulse rod, usually 7 foot around that area, and great for skipping. Usually 5 feet of water or less, I'm throwing the wacky worm. I use that as a target strategy. And if I don't get a fish after 5 tugs, like pop, pop, tug, 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 after 5 times, I'm reeling that bad boy in, because I have found that over the years I've been doing this, you're going to have a better chance of catching bass and increase your chances if you pull that thing in and target another area. Will
Within
you
the
catch
first
them?
5 feet.
5 feet. Yeah. If you're done, just
First
reel it in
5
and
feet.
throw it at a different spot, because you'll get something to hit between then and the boat, but the chances go
A
significantly
lot of wasted
down.
time.
A lot of wasted time. So if you like fishing the averages and having time on your side, that's how you do it. All right. My number 2. And I don't know why this is not number 1, because the number 2 caught me my personal best this year, just a few weeks ago. Caught a 7-pound bass here in Ohio, 22.75, Donkey Town around here. And I caught it on the 3.5-inch Yamamoto green pumpkin black fleck, 5/0 hook, 20-pound fluorocarbon, pitching it into wood. Because when this thing falls, and these have a lot of salt content as well. So what I do is actually I'll put an O-ring on the outside, and then I run my EWG hook through it, and you'll get this to last probably 8 or 9 times longer. But this thing falls like a flutter back and forth. And so I'll throw it into dead wood. This thing will pop. It has a blunt end on it as well. So when it hits the logs and stuff, it like flips over because it's catching everywhere. And for whatever reason, right after I pop it over some type of underwater stick, this thing gets smashed. I've pulled up, I think, a couple 22s on the Yamamoto. Now you could skip these; they skip really well. I throw them on deep structure. I throw them in lily pads. It's like an uber versatile bait for me. They go by fast, but nonetheless, I picked up a lot. I'm going to be taking them down to Gunnersville with me. However, I just got.
How do you hook those? Say, how did you say you hook those?
5/0. Yep. And they have 2 slits. So after you ruin one side, you can usually get maybe one more time on the other side. You skin hook it. And it's one of those baits that you're like, okay, these cost like $1 each, but they get eaten. So I'll do that trade-off all day long. I'll just keep buying these things. So picked up a lot of my biggest bass on that. However, Yamamoto's came out with the 4.25 right there. And so I was a little disappointed when I got it this morning. I haven't fished it yet, because all they did, I was assuming that if they're going to make a 3.5 and a 4.25, that the 4.25 would actually be fatter to be commensurate with the length. It's not. It's like the same width. It's just longer. Like they just made the tail longer. So a little disappointed on that. I was hoping for a little bit more beefier bait on the 4.25, but I'll probably hook this up with probably a 5/0, to be honest with you.
I would think so. I mean, it's a little bigger. I would think 5/0 would be perfect for that too.
5/0, it's a lot. It's a heavy plastic. That's a lot of plastic to move out of the way. So people's like, oh, you can put 4/0. You can. It's not what's recommended. It's not what I recommend. Being that you got to move a lot of plastic out of the way, I would go 5/0 on both the 3.5 and the 4.25. Nonetheless, if you don't fish, this is one of those weird baits that I feel like a lot of anglers like, that's so stupid, I would never fish that. That's great for me because
it's
I'm
something different.
It's something different. And I'm telling you what, I can't tell you how many people write me, right, and tell me, thank you so much for putting me on that stupid poop bait that looks like an upside down bowling pin, because it absolutely slays for me. All right, guys, the final round. Final round. Your number 1. Share why and what it is. What do you got?
Yeah, so this bait here, most people will probably think of it as a time of year type bait, and it's not for vegetation. You'll see why here in a second, but I don't know, I don't know when I got it. Maybe the end of last year, probably the end of last year. I got the old live scope. So easy on the chat, guys. Easy on the chat. I got the old live scope, forward-facing sonar, and I'm in Florida, so I don't have a lot of like 30, 40, 50-foot deep lakes here. So I run mine perspective mode, which we can talk about then if you want. But my bait is a jerkbait, and it's a Berkeley. So depending on the depth, this is a Berkeley Stunna 112+1. This is the one that goes a little bit deeper water. It doesn't go too deep though. It says 6+. What does it say? 6 to 10 feet. It doesn't run 10 feet. No chance. And then the other one is the Rapala or Rapala, depending on how you pronounce it. I'm not sure the exact pronunciation. But the X-Wrap. And this one has a has the feather on it.
Nice
I would never use. So without being able to see how the fish react, I would not throw this bait very often because the feather just doesn't do anything for me personally. But for some reason, the bass down here, especially over the last few months, I won the state championship in Florida this past year in 2024, back in May on this exact bait. This one here has the teeth on it and everything. Caught a couple gar on it. I'm surprised I didn't lose it. On this exact bait here, probably caught over 100 fish over 2 days on this bait.
Whoa.
But what I do is, man, there's so much to this. I could talk forever. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I was talking to you guys a little bit earlier on the live scope and perspective mode. And it's kind of an underrated way to use live scope. If you guys watch Scott Martin in the Bassmaster Open, I think it was the first one of the year on Lake Okeechobee this year, the water was pretty stained. He was fishing around about 50 to 60 other boats in a cove, but he was using perspective mode in about 3 feet of water. And what it does is it, instead of shooting like a beam straight up and down forward, it gives you a perspective over the whole course of an area, maybe like maybe like a 5 foot swath the whole way across. So as I'm facing forward with my live scope, my perspective mode, I can see fish that are over here. I can see, it's like 360 imaging, which some people know, but this is all live. So I see a fish, I can cast at them, towards them, and I just don't know their depth, but it doesn't really matter too much if it's 6 feet of water.
6 feet away. They're there.
Right? Yeah. So I don't need to know if my bait's above them or whatever. It's going to be above them most likely. So I'm able to see all these hits, and I've thrown all kinds of baits. I threw 13-inch worms. I've thrown everything in these fish, and that's what live scope has done for me. Like the forward facing sonar is I'm able to see how fish react to bait. And I've never known that my entire life. Like we kind of infer what the fish are doing or where the fish are, or they're all schooled up. But there's so many things that I've learned just from seeing these fish on live scope. That's been incredible. And the things that work the best, or I shouldn't say that. The baits that get the fish's attention the most, from my perspective, is either a jerkbait or like a strolling bait, like a little, like the regular forward facing sonar baits that people use and they stroll, like a little swim bait kind of deal. But that's tough for me because I'm in a kayak. I don't use spot lock. And in order for me to use forward facing sonar and a straight beam, I have to make sure there's like, if wind's blowing me, it's so hard to keep it on the fish. Like I don't have a trolling motor where I can turn it and just keep the beam on. So perspective mode is the way to do it. And these jerkbaits, man, if you go to like my TikTok or my Instagram, you can see I put some of the videos on there of what my screen looked like in perspective mode when I caught like a 9.5 pounder this year, a couple 7s. So you can actually see like the fish chasing the jerkbait. Some of them aren't great videos because I wasn't really set up for it, but you can actually see the fish coming and chasing the bait. It's been really cool. But yeah, that's my number one bait, the jerkbait, man.
I like it. On perspective mode.
And you've got some donkeys on that too. I've seen your videos.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I talked to a lot of people who have FFS, and they say, it's essentially worthless in shallow water. No. Slept on secret right here, folks.
It really is.
Perspective mode. All right. Ryan Fuller had a question for you. What knot to use in that jerkbait?
Palomar knot, I believe it's called.
There you go. That's essentially what I do too. Everyone
that's all I use. Except for my spinnerbaits.
So good.
And do you mind if I show you one more thing before you move on? It's on topic, off topic. We were talking about fish behavior.
Hit us.
So it's this book. Have you guys ever read this book? It's called Knowing Bass.
It's right by my bed.
The Scientific Approach for Catching More Fish by Keith A. Jones, PhD.
It was written by the guys that used to work at Berkeley.
Okay.
So they did all kinds of studies on bass. You'll see some of the stuff in here.
Yeah.
This book is another tough one to find. I think it originally came out at $17, but if you look online, it's like $200 now.
Yikes. Hard to find.
Yeah. But you get to see like how they reacted to worms, shad, like different flavors, whether it's garlic, onion powder, like all the different stuff that they did these tests on these bass are in this book. And it's a really cool book for bass fishermen. So if there's ever a gift you want to get for someone, something like that, this book here is really cool. So yeah, just wanted to share that real quick before I hopped off.
Great. There goes $200. Thanks. Appreciate that. I wish I should have said no. Please don't share what it is.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. So good. All right, Phil, what do you got? Your number one?
Well, I'm Topwater. That's what I was telling you guys, my Topwater baits that I use. And so one of my favorite Topwaters, I'll just get into that, is Berkeley Chopo. I've used the Whopper Ploppers, but I've Chopo. And like I told you guys, every fish that I qualified for the tournament on, every fish that I caught in the month of June, and every fish that I caught for the month of July, I come in third place in the month of June. And I'm like, well, I fished so hard. So I'm going to get to the story. But I love the Chopos, and I'll tell you in a second, but I love the Chopos. This one here is wore out. Can you see how nasty looking that thing is? I have worn this thing out. I've been them. The one thing about it, you got to be careful when you throw in Chopos because you can break that fin right there real easy. That fin will break. But I love the design of it, and I'm going to tell you real quick. I love the Chopo better than I do the Whopper Plopper, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the sound, and I carry several of these. The anything Ghost, I love Ghost. I love the Ghost Bluegill. I love the Ghost White. The Ghost Bluegill of the Chopos is my favorite, and I love the 120s. I have thrown the smaller ones, but I love the 120s. This is the Ghost Bluegill. You don't see those in the store much anymore. Walmart used to carry them. I've heard rumor there was a contract dropped or something, but you don't see them anymore. So I order them online now. But this is the Ghost Bluegill. Guys, I've used monofilament. I used to throw 20-pound monofilament on all my swim baits and things like that. But I've changed now. I'm pretty much braid. I'm a braid guy. So,
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of finessing, so I love the fact that I'm hearing all this with what we're going into. It's a lot of, diversity here. So we got different, ways we fish. But I'm going to tell you a little something here real quick, a story that I've learned with using these. And this is why people say, I don't know why you use those in the middle of the summertime at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and sun, the highest part of the day, and you're throwing a Chopo. People don't throw topwater. Well, I can just tell you, there's a way you use these Chopos. You can put your line down and you can pull it down just a little bit, and that's going to give it that little flutter back here in the back. Like you take a prop of a boat and raise it up out of the water and push. You don't have it, right? You understand what I'm saying there? It's got that different. Am I making sense? So if your prop's up out of the water on a boat, okay, you don't have as much effectiveness. So I look at it like this. So when I raise the lure up, it puts a little bit more on the back, and that chop's a little different sound. I will weave these through structure. If I see a tree and I want it to have all kind of crap but few spaces in to get through, I will. A lot of folks will throw down from the bank and pull. I parallel and I 45, and it's just different techniques I work. But I like to work the outer part of that tree, 45 the front, 45, and then I throw across, and I'll weave. I'll stand up. I love the fact. That's why I love a long rod. It's been crazy. I'll use I was throwing the Lew's IM8 7.3 heavy fast action. Believe it or not, throwing on this because I love the hook set when they hit, because I was losing a lot of fish with a medium heavy. I was losing fish because by the time they hit it and I react, I lose it. But by the time they hit it on the heavy fast with a 20-pound braid,
You weren't asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's the work is done. They pretty much have set the hook. I just, because of that little fast action on the heavy. But this year, true story, guys, I was fishing for the month of June and trying to qualify for the Knucklehead series. So the month of June, right there on the 27th day of June, I was fishing, and I started out at one lake, and I fished that morning, caught a nice 20.5-inch spot on the Chopo in about a 2 foot of water in the river. The water was about 77 degrees coming out of the bottom of the dam. The spot we're running up in there. So I was paralleling the bank, pulling a Chopo, and hooked a nice 20.5. I thought, well, that's great. It helped me out. So later that day, I went to a different lake right down the road. And so I was fishing. I caught maybe 115-incher all day, and I went way down the lake, and I was on my way back, and I was introduced to this new topwater lure, and I'd never heard of it before. And I thought, well, it's really different looking. I like it. And it's called the Headbanger Spitfire. Okay. And if you've never thrown these things, they're completely different. They have like this little scoop up the front of it, and they will really push the water along, and this fish the lure kind of rides behind that, so that, if you will. And so it creates like just a wake. It pushes a wake, and it sounds like a little waterfall, when you get closer, you can hear it. And so I caught the biggest bass of my life. I'm 49 years old, and I've been bass fishing since I was a kid with my grandpa, the Tennessee River, all over North Alabama, smallmouth, largemouth. I've never caught a largemouth bigger than 4 pounds in my whole life. And so this year, I will tell you guys, after getting into it, I've caught some of the biggest bass of my life. I've had some of the greatest times of my life. And I just threw this lure, learning. A friend of mine had pitched. I gave him a smaller version, and I said, man, I can't catch crap on this. Well, he went and caught 2 20-inchers that day, and he won the tournament that day on that lure. I didn't catch a thing with it. So anyway, he bought some bigger ones, a 6.5, and this is like it's like a ghost. I can't think if it's a ghost bluegill, but it is a bluegill color. I said, oh, what the heck? I'm going to throw something different on the way back up. I'm not going to throw any chopper or any whopper. I'm going to throw something different. And I'm glad I did, because I threw this across the end of a log in about 40 foot of water. The head of the tree was up. And I was just planning my next throw. You know, you're looking, you're planning, I'm going to throw over there. Man, out of nowhere, she hit this thing. And guys, it was pretty cool. I had literally prayed that morning for a big fish, and I'm not no religious person. I'm spiritual. I do a lot of praying, but I had prayed that morning, God, I pray today to hedge protection, and I pray for a chance to catch a pretty big fish today. God, if it's your will, I'd love to do that.
That's my prayer every day.
Yeah, I kneel by the water and I pray for a safe fishing day and for God to be glorified in what I do and how we're fishing today. And I'm not perfect by no means. Don't get me wrong. I'm a sinner of sinners, but it was just one of those days, guys. It was a God thing. Because I threw this random lure that I've, never really used before. And I learned to throw it, and it's really cool once you figure it out. She hit that thing, and I knew it was big by the time that's a little bigger than I'm normally getting. So I took my time. I was 40 to 50 foot of water. I didn't have to worry about structure. I did use my net, Seth. I did use my net. It got up close to me, and I seen it when it was, that's a little bigger than what I've been getting. I've been getting some 22s and some, nice 22 and a half. So it's good. So when I got it up in the boat, I saw it. I just literally sat there and I went, I will probably never get this chance the rest of my life, but thank you, God. I know this is the biggest bass I've ever caught in my life. I don't know what it is.
PB.
My serious one. So I even left the lure in its mouth so I can show Headbanger, hey guys, I used your lure, but they didn't say anything. But anyway, but it was pretty cool. I laid it on the measuring board, and guys, it was 25.25 inches long. And I sat there with tears in my eyes. I called my best friend right off the bat because he and I have been fishing together and we've learned these lures. And I had to call him because he gave me the lure and he says, "Oh, what you got? What you got?" I said, "Man, I've just caught the biggest bass of my life." I was shaking, because it was like, wow. So we figured out with the old scales that I had were not that good. And so I knew where I had pulled mine, had the old spring scale. I'm old school, guys. I don't have live scope. I got a low rent 7 reveal, I do a lot. All I need to see is the water temperature, where I'm at on my depth, and that's about it. So, that's kind of how I fish. But it was really, really cool. Exciting. I didn't win that tournament for that month, but it put me up there really quick. I think like 3rd place, and it helped me out. So the month of July, I didn't really fish that much till right at the end of July. And so I took, everything that I'd applied, and man, I got very fortunate to where I was able to fish about 4 days, 3.5 really. And I was able to win, and it's a blessing to be here with you guys. And I look forward to this. And I really hope that we all have a good, safe time, a lot of learning experience. I look forward to learning with you guys and anything, but that's where I'm at with it. It's just I've learned how to use it, but this is my number one go-to lure. And so yeah, and I one of my best friends, he's the same way. It's just how you use it. It makes a different sound if you pull it a certain way, if you retrieve it a certain way. It's just I can't tell anybody enough. And I got friends that say, "Well, I throw that thing and I can't catch fish." Well, look, it took me a minute, to figure them out. But then again, it's these guys here. So I'm Topwater guy. Yeah, I'm a Topwater guy. Less than $5 at Walmart, guys. And you can cook. It's so cheap. And if I break one, so what? See ya, get another one.
Yeah.
And so I like it that way. But anyway, that's
hold
me.
Up, Phil. Hold up. You were telling me that you were fishing in June, and I'm looking on my June. You weren't fishing for Team Wendell. Who are you fishing for?
I joined up on old John Creek fishing.
I'm about to flip this table upside down.
Boy.
Hey, since we're being honest here, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I just ran. This is how I did it for the month of July. I said, you know what? I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to thumb up and down, and whatever it stops on, that's who I'm joining. I swear to you, I did. I just flipped up, flipped down, stop. Wendell, okay, I'll go with that. Looked you up and I'm like, hey, cool. Yeah, that's just how I did it, man. And so, I'm really looking forward to this. Alabama's my home state. Roll Tide, big Roll Tide. So yeah. So I'm looking forward.
So you were creek fishing and Wendell. So you were just like, I'll do creek fishing and I can do one other. And so you just did the whole throw an arrow.
Yeah. That's how I did it. I just kind of flipped up and down. I got a friend of mine. He's on creek fishing this year. And so he was on it last year. So he's the one that got me involved in this stuff, And so I'm really excited. Yeah. It's a good story, to pass on, but that's been my year.
I love it. No, it's good. I'm glad you're on the team. Thanks for. I love hearing those stories when people catch their PBs. 25 is a freaking donkey. Wow, well done, Jack.
I was wondering if anybody beat that, but
that'd be Seth. Would be the only one going to be able to beat that around here. What's your PB?
So it's probably on a boat, and I didn't measure it. So I caught a few 10s. I used to run a bass cat before I got into kayak fishing. Sold my boat to build my house here in Florida like 5 years ago.
What kind of boat you have? Stay gone.
What's that?
What kind of boat did you have? Where you bought a house?
What kind of house do you have?
It was a
tiny house nation over here.
Yeah. I'm still in a So it was a bass cat with a 250 Mercury, and So I used to be in the oil and gas industry. So I used to do well. Not so. Now I'm doing my own stuff now, so it's a different lifestyle now. Once I left that industry, but what was it? Oh yeah. So my biggest fish is I never measured them. It's always like weight in a boat. It was always weight, right? So they were 10s. So they're probably over 25. But my biggest one in the kayak that I measured was 25 and a half. So okay. I barely snuck one out on you there.
Got it. Well, we're all going to have to change that here in October 5th and 6th. Jack, what's your number one, brother?
It's the lure I throw first every time I go out. It's a weedless whopper plopper.
Oh, all right. You and Phil.
Knuklhed frog.
Oh,
I haven't thrown that
one. Hold
Hold
up. You gave us a curveball there. You went whopper popper, and then you pulled this thing out.
It's just like a whopper plopper.
Oh my God.
Depending the speed, the different sound, it makes different sound. It's soft bodied. So I can throw this in the grass, but it's been really effective pulling it along the grass line about 2 feet out from it and varying your reel speed. You reel it real fast. You got this pop, 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 pop. You reel it slow. It's pop, 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 and just change that cadence. And it drives them crazy. This is the first lure I throw every time I go out.
The whopper frog? Is that what it's called?
It's called a Knuklhed sprinkler frog. It's my weedless whopper plopper. Or Chad Hoover refers to it as a weedless whopper plopper. So
yeah.
I'm a fan of you, Jack. I love it.
I've been fishing this for years.
You're speaking my language. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever even seen that lure before in my life, let alone fished it. That is right on. I mean, I'm following the logic on it, so I like it. What do you throw that on braid?
I do throw it on braid or 20-pound.
Okay.
Fluorocarbon.
Say it slower for me because I missed it. A Knuklhed what?
It's a Knuklhed.
Knuklhed with a T as in Tom?
Yeah. It's what I say. I knew you were going to ask.
Yeah, you'll have to show that to me when I see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a few of them. So
perfect. I got a few for you.
But I do have a place, Phil, I think is going to be perfect for you to fish. I want to point out.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. I was hoping you would.
Yeah. It's hard.
Can I add something to you, Jack? I don't want to cut into your time. Can I add something to what you just said there?
Yeah.
You know how he's talking about the sound, that plop, 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 plop. Guys, it is, and for those of you watching your channel, I'm going to tell you right now, that's everything. I've got a friend of mine here. He's designed a thing called a knocker. I think it's what it is. And they use it to knock up. It makes a little thump, thump, thump. And they put it in their boat. You can put it in your kayak. It calls up like balls of bait fish. And so the striper, the striped bass, what do they call them? Dan bass or something like that out west, or something like a striper. That's what they call them. But it brings them up. But it's the same thing. And I believe it's so true that when you put this lure in a certain way, Jack, like you're talking about yours, that speed is everything if you want to get them up from the deep. Some people think it needs to go plop, 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 plop. By the time they hear it, it's already gone past them. So that slow, that plop, 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 that will pull them up. And I've pulled them up 15, 20 foot.
Oh, wow. I like it.
Anyway, Jack, that's what I wanted to add to you because that's right on the money.
Phil, are you passionate about bass fishing at all? I'm not picking it up at all.
I love it, man. It's a sickness. I need help.
And he's close too to since I'm local here. So
nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Anything else to add on your Knuklhed whopper plopper frog thing?
No.
Knuklhed, whatever it's called.
It works.
It works. Other than it works. All right. Oh my goodness. I'm going to get myself one of those. It cost me a small fortune. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody who watches this channel what my number one is, because I talk about it all freaking summer long. Because out of my 20 over 20 inch, I think 15 of them have been on the swim jig. And I've fallen in love with all terrain swim jigs. These are going to be the half ounce So it's gonna be a 5/0 hook. They're super sharp and they stay sharp bass after bass. And I just really, it's so funny. Someone just texted me. I took a photo of it because I didn't know if I was going to talk about it tonight. But this is what he texted me. He said, "I'm really enjoying watching you progress through social media outlets. You went from sucking at jigs to making them a main staple of your success. Thank you for sharing your tips and ideas." Yeah, I didn't know how to take that. I was like, then I thought to myself, "You're right. I did suck at jigs. It's one of those things. It is a main staple, and I feel like some people overlook it, and especially overlook the swim jig." And I dialed it in. I dialed in my side scan this year, and I patterned them on lakes around here, and I absolutely slayed. So what I do is I put a 3.75-inch rage tail, and essentially I've only used either one of two colors. Either I'm using the Ghost Shad, I believe it's called.
Ghost. There you go.
There it is. Or
that's the word.
I don't always use that one. This is the one, KVD Magic. It's got that green pumpkin top and that silvery bottom, and that combined with this swim jig. I love how it's designed. This thing swims better than any other swim jig that I have, only because of how that
Can you put that a little closer to the camera, that the head on that? Oh yeah.
Huh.
It's got those red eyes for that color flash, and
no wonder you're skipping that.
I'm telling you what, this thing is just, I cut this weed guard off. I don't like it. But it's got a nice keeper on it. I usually put super glue in there, and just 20s after 20s after 20s, 19s, 18s. This thing has just produced so many high quality bass for me. I throw it on 20-pound fluorocarbon, just a Palomar knot on my jig rod. And I have it on I think a 7.2-1 Corrado K, I believe what that is. And that hook set is just so incredibly addicting. And so I know a lot of people have been having a lot of success on them. So I got a couple different colors I use. This one, I forget what this color is, but the main ones are green pumpkin. They're all 1/2 ounce. And I bought these for down at Guntersville. These are the Tennessee shads. And so they have a silver face on them.
Oh yeah, look, Jack, he's got the same thing.
There it is, Jack. Literally, I feel like we're throwing the same. That's KVD Magic, that color.
No, this is Tennessee Shad.
Tennessee Shad. Okay, that's similar then.
Yeah,
that's
super
it's crazy
similar down here. That's usually my trailer on my jig. This is my swim jig.
See, that's looking really similar. So, looking forward to throwing these and hopefully having a lot of success with those. But nonetheless, swim jig for me. It's hard to put it down when it continually catches bass over and over again. Guys, we're at an hour and a half. Holy cow, that went
good show.
That went fast, right? Yep. That was good. Hopefully you guys picked up something juicy along the way. Thank you all for, there's a lot of comments we usually didn't get around to. Usually I try to go back over there. Teckle sprinkler frog is that bait. Not what I was saying. That's for dang sure. So thank you, Kyle.
Hey, as long as nobody could pronounce it, they wouldn't go buy it. You know, I was working with that.
I used to be that way. It's like, I'm not going to tell anybody what I use, but here's the thing. I don't really care anymore because it's, you can go buy the same lure and throw it in the same hole. And I probably am not going to catch the fish. It's present. Is it, I mean, would you agree? It's pure luck and presentation. Maybe, I don't know. So, because I have thrown a Chapo, and as soon as it hits the water, I set it. I was using my GoPro, getting used to it. And my friend was doing some just fishing, just checking to see where they were. And I had thrown, and I got it on video. It's hilarious. And of course I couldn't share it because it was so stressful. I used words I shouldn't have used in the video. However, so I had wrapped around. That's another reasons why I use the braid, Daren, is because I can get it out of the trees. I don't break my line. I'm not losing a $12 lure. So this thing wrapped around the limb and went back out in the water. And I knew it was big, but it hit as soon as it hit the water. And all I was going to do was retrieve just to get my lure out of there.
Right.
Well, it hit it before I could get it up because it was up in there looking for brim on a dadgum 90-degree day with 88-degree water. You'd have never thought anything was up in there, but it was. They were up in there for the brim. And so I just got fortunate. But that was the braided line. Chapo, Topwater. Hey,
there you go. Hey guys, hope that was helpful for you. Now we talked about a lot of colors, but have you ever asked yourself, what colors do bass actually see? Well, I got the answer for you. Check it out right there. Thanks for watching. See ya.